Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Ashley Mailloux with producers Bobby and Vinny helping us out as we get you ready for some graded stakes action out at Saratoga on Sunday. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 3 Adirondack. Just worth mentioning that as we record here on Friday, it's been really wet out at Saratoga this week, Ashley. It was pouring. They had to cancel the races on Wednesday. And I think as of Friday morning, it started raining again. So just monitor the weather over the weekend if you're playing races at Saratoga, because you never know what the track might look like and what the conditions could be. Here's the field for the Adirondack, and it doesn't really surprise me here. I mean, Scarlett Begonia was impressive. Pierette was also very impressive, and that's going to be the case in some of these races with the 2-year-olds. You have the horses that are just coming off of the big, impressive victories.
Yeah, I think kind of looking at the line, the four shortest prices, I think they are the four, right? It's nothing crazy here. I think the big thing is seeing how horses transition to Saratoga. You have a lot of horses that maybe debuted or have a race or two, I should say. At Churchill, we got a horse coming in from Lone Star. You have a little bit of everything, and there's a handful of horses, right, that have had, say, 3 starts, Gino, and they've had some good efforts, but they've also had some dull ones sprinkled in.
That's a great point that you mentioned. We have horses coming from Belmont and Aqueduct, Lone Star, Churchill, Saratoga, Ellis Park, and Woodbine from their last races. You don't see that all too often where they're really coming from all over the place. Let's take a look at how the Timeform US Pace Projector thinks this race will set up. And they don't think it should be going too fast early on, but as the case with these younger horses, a lot of them are going to go forward early. And these horses are stretching out from 5 furlongs, 5.5, and from 6. So it's going to be a little bit farther than what they're used to. We can kick things off with Bandmaster, who was a debut winner on June the 21st at Belmont and Aqueduct. A good start, settled about 5 lengths off, got a really nice setup where the top 2 were just battling it out early, and she got to sit third and then angle around behind them. And she was almost 35-1 when she won that day. What do you think about her chances in here?
I mean, it's so tough with the 2-year-olds, Gino, right? Like they run well on debut. I mean, she needs a buyer boost compared to some of the other fillies. But to your point, she was ice cold on the board. She was close enough to it, made a move, and got up. I don't mind her based on that, going from 5.5 to 6.5. Timeform has her a little bit more towards the back, just given the fractions of that last out effort, right, and where she was early. But she seems a horse that is typically training pretty well in the mornings, and she's got, a nice work or two coming into this. Actually, her last 3 have been really solid. So if you like her in here, I couldn't get to her because I like some of the other performances a little bit more. But if you like her in here, you're going to get a nice price, and she has upside.
Yeah, there's very much a version of this race where she gets a trip too, where she just kind of sits back. They go quick early, and she's able to pick up the pieces and make one late run and at least be passing like half the field in here. We move to Caroline's Girl. You don't see this move all too often, Ashley. From Lone Star over to Saratoga, from Texas breds at Lone Star over to Saratoga. But she was visually impressive. She was a step slow. She moved from about 5 lengths off. She was 10th in the field early on. She makes this 3 deep move. And then a huge like 5 wide move at the top of the lane, and she just keeps going. So they want to see how good she really is off of this performance where she just trounced that company behind. And she didn't earn a bad speed figure first time out for a 2-year-old against Texas bred. So yeah, this is a real acid test for her. She's going to come into the Safi Joseph Jr. barn for the first time.
Yeah, and it looks like there was a purchase after this effort, and the runner-up came back to win, Kamikaze Cowgirl. She took a step forward, second time out. Her buyer boosted up a little bit, but the way she made the move, if you watch the race, I mean, she's got a lot that she's figuring out, but man, I thought it was impressive. And,
Yeah.
The buyer's not going to be as high as some others in here, but I think visually, I really like what we saw. You mentioned she goes to a new barn. They do very well with their new acquisitions and their 2-year-old. So in a field like this, and the fact that you're getting Flavien Prat aboard, I think there's a lot to like.
Yeah, connections play, absolutely. Pierette is the next one up. She's 2 for 2. She recently won the debutante over at Churchill Downs. She was able to sit just behind the leaders. She stayed inside till mid-stretch. She angled around, got up to win with a really nice gallop out. She just looks really handy and just like really, really solid. And I can understand why she's one of the top choices on the morning line. Those 2 races are just, she's the most accomplished in this field so far, where she's shown that she can sit behind horses, and she just looks like a total pro.
Yeah, I really like how she handled the stretch out too, right? Going from 5 furlongs to 6 furlongs, I thought she was even stronger. They went quicker, but she was able to kind of almost replicate her debut performance in terms of trip. She took a nice step forward. I don't see any issues going from 6 to 6.5. And I do think in some ways, based on her foundation, I think she might trip out in here, Gino.
We move to Washington. She had a pretty unlucky trip, and she still was able to win in her debut. It was on May the 22nd. It was over at Churchill. It was 5 furlongs on a sloppy track. The race was initially scheduled for the turf. She's sitting inside. She has no room. Then she has to move into a really tight spot. And the horse who was on the lead, she bumps with that horse. She almost bumps off the rail, like kind of bounced off the bottom of it. She still keeps trying and then pushes back through the rail, gets into a photo for the win, and she gets this incredible bob, big gallop out. Like mid-stretch, it looked like she was going to win by a length or two. Then things get really tight for her, and then she comes back on again. So what makes this race competitive is wouldn't shock me at all to see her win this race. But when the races are taken off the turf, sometimes they're not quite as strong as just a regularly scheduled maiden special weight race on the dirt. But she showed some ability. She showed some determination in there. I don't really have many knocks on her.
No, and you mentioned, I mean, there were 4 scratches in that race, right? So you do wonder how it worked out in terms of the horses that were up there kind of setting the fractions early. Storm Diva was one of them. She was the runner-up. Express Success was the other. She ended up finishing 4th in there, and is actually the stablemate to Washington. So I don't know. I kept on going back to that performance, and I give her a little bit of credit. It's always tough to say. You know, you win on a race that was carted for the turf, moved to an off-main track. You were close to it, but she did have to fight for it in the end, which I think is what I liked the most. And you just feel like with this barn and their 2-year-olds going out in their next start, they got one of their go-to riders at the meet, Ricardo Santana, aboard. Another one that is going to take respect in here, and I think she deserves it. I mean, it's going to get tough in this field as we go through it, just because, you know, we have a lot of horses making their second start, Gino, to really separate them.
Luminous Beauty on paper seems like she's one of the quickest. In her career debut, she finishes 2nd behind Pierette over at Churchill Downs. Then she comes to Saratoga in June and she breaks her maiden and she wins by 6, and she earns a nice 77 Beyer speed figure, which I believe is the top Beyer in the field for anyone. Then on July the 3rd, a little disappointing. She was your betting favorite. She in the Schuylerville, she was 2nd from the outside. She was kind of sitting just off, and she made a little move up to challenge, but she was all in early. She did lose to a nice horse. Harper's Corner earned an 88 Beyer speed figure and is 2 for 2 there. So maybe that one was just a lot better than who she'll face on Saturday. But I would have liked, or on Sunday, I would have liked to see a little bit more from her, like just when she stepped up and had to face stakes company. So I do think this is going to be a better spot, but I still have some questions that I'm going to ask about her.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, at the same time, maybe you do give her a pass because she was eased up on in the end, and you wonder if she just something went amiss in that race. I think it's positive to see her coming back just under a month later, basically, or almost to the date. And went back to that maiden performance. I mean, she was quick, Gino, and the fractions that she set, and she romped in there, just made it look really, really easy. And then I give her credit because on debut, she was 2nd to Pierette, who we already talked about here, the 3 horse. So I don't know. I mean, there is that kind of question mark. What the heck happened last time out as, you know, a heavy favorite in that field, but I don't know. She got 2 other performances, and you can see their go-to riders coming up. It looks like from Florida to pilot her.
I wonder if they just kind of let her loose too on the front end in here. They were sort of trying to grab a hold a little bit to sit off the speed. And I wonder if they just say, hey, let's try to just go to the front end. Let's let her get out front and go as fast as she can, as long as she can. We move to Scarlett Begonia coming in from Ellis Park. And our colleague Marcus Hirsch was just pointing out how strong the maiden special weights are this season at Ellis Park. If you're not paying attention to those races day in and day out, they have some really, really strong races. And Scarlett Begonia was very impressive on July the 6th. Fine start from the inside, ended up taking back to about 5th, 4 lengths off, about 5 lengths off, like heading into the stretch, and then angles out with this huge move to get the lead, kicks clear. This horse is actually a half to a multiple graded stakes winner named Zagiel, who was good from about 7 furlongs to a mile and a 16th on the dirt. And let's look at the start to the meet that Brad Cox has had at Saratoga. He has had 10 winners in 31 starts as of the PPs that I was looking at. So, I mean, he just seemed like he's firing and figuring out which horses to send over there, because he has like 15 condition books where he can send horses to any track. She just looks like she's one of the major players in here.
She does. I mean, pretty much all the siblings have been, in my opinion, they've been good, right? They've done a lot of good work. I liked the trip that she got. You talked about the depth. She had a big field in there. She just kind of galloped away from them. And then you kind of look at the timing. Love that she's coming back just under a month later. You can see she went back to work about 13 days later, just the 2 breezes. She's had some quick breezes here and there. I don't think she's much of a speedy type in the mornings. It seems more maintenance than anything. So I think factoring that in with the connections here, I do think she's going to be heavily played in this spot.
Prime Aurora is next up. She won her career debut at Gulfstream Park back in May. Then in her second start, she was in the Schuylerville. Took a few strides to get going. She was up to third, about 2 lengths off. She didn't have a little bit of room down on the inside. She had to wait when Harper's Corner was asked for a run. But she was sort of close to Harper's Corner at that point. And when that one was asked, Prime Aurora really couldn't keep up. So this is going to be, we'll see how good Harper's Corner is with some of these horses that are coming out of that race and in this spot now. What do you think about Prime Aurora's chances at 10-1?
Yeah, I had a tough time getting to her. I mean, I really struggle with the Gulfstream Park, the 4.5 furlong races down there and what comes out of them. I don't think it's been the most productive event. And you look at her, I mean, she ran fine tackling stakes competition for the first time. It ended up being a really strung out field, though, which I don't necessarily know how to read. So I don't know. I like others more. I will say, kind of looking at a workout tab, she's been at Colonial. She has some nice drills. Pedigree wise, it's interesting. The mare was just 2 for 22. And you look at her races, she won at first asking. And then she had one other win on the grass. They campaigned her a lot on the grass. And, she's had productive siblings, obviously, a lot of them on the dirt. But I just didn't have as much intrigue. I think kind of looking at her, she's 10-1. I probably would take Bandmaster at 20-1.
Yeah. I like some of the other bigger prices better. I completely agree. We move to Stress Relief, who's horse coming off of that career debut win. It was on June the 20th. It was over at Churchill Downs. She sat pretty close. She was in the 2 path just outside the leader. She put away the 2-1 favorite early, and then she draws off. She wins by 5. The Dam was a solid little multiple stakes winner and a 3-time winner. And I thought that was a pretty nice debut for a barn that kind of fires really well and under the radar.
I do too. And I think from here, you have to kind of consider her as being a part of the pace based on how fast they went in that race. 22, 45, and 4, going the 5 furlong distance. I do think there's a situation to her and Luminous Beauty. Do they hook up early? I mean, that certainly could happen. She has to stretch out though. But, another one, I guess it's kind of, we sound like a broken record here. I mean, there are things to like. And in terms of horses coming out of that race and how they've fared, next start, not a lot of them well. One of the horses that was towards the back, though, did come back to finish second in a maiden special weight on the grass at Saratoga. So that's something to look at as well. I don't know what you thought of the pedigree, Gino. I mean, the mare was a stakes winner, but this is her first full, so there wasn't a lot of depth there.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for Stress Relief. Like, of the speed horses, I might even like her better than Luminous Beauty and might like her most just because where she's drawn to the outside of them. And, I think it's a fair price if she is in that like 6 to 10-1-ish range. Let's round things out with Almighty One. She made her first 2 starts at Presque Isle. She was a runner-up, and then she came back to win Breaker Maiden her second start. Third start went over to Woodbine for the My Dear Stakes. She was inside. She did lose position and get shuffled back a little bit. She was like 5 lengths off. She came back again. She found room in between horses, and I thought she closed pretty well. She was just green. She was like up on heels again late, and she didn't seem like she wanted to hit some of the small holes when she would get little openings there. So there's something there with her. I don't know if she's good enough to win this race. It's going to be her first start on the dirt, but she certainly ran in spots. And I think if you're like, we're talking about big prices in here, I could absolutely give her kind of a wild card chance for the bottom of your exotics if you're looking for a horse to spice up your tries and supers. So Almighty One rounds things out. What do you think about her on the dirt?
Yeah, I looked at that effort. I mean, I don't mind the top 2 out of the race at Woodbine. In terms of their trip, they weren't as far off of her early on, but I don't know if she had a ton of excuses in there. And the horse that finished third was a horse on debut, right? So it's been tough to read some of those 2-year-old stakes because we do see a lot of, maidens in them or first-time starters, that sort of deal. But it was a different trip for her. It was her first time out of Presque Isle. She was stretching out and she had to roll from off of it. Not necessarily what you might have expected, but that's where she found herself. So I agree with you. I think, if you're looking at her, could she get a piece in here? Yes, she is going to try the dirt for the first time. And she had one sibling who never really did much in 2 starts, but I mean, she is by Jimmy Creed. So, I don't necessarily think dirt's going to be an issue.
We round things out for this one. Let's move to selections. How'd you stack them up for the grade 3 Adirondack?
Well, I said earlier, the 4 lower prices on the morning line, which I handicapped without, are kind of the 4 that I look at in here. I go to the 3 in here, Pierette on top, just based on her 2 efforts. I've loved the trip that she's gotten. I think going from 5 to 6 to 6.5 is going to suit her well. And I said it. I think, Gino, there's a situation, you use her in second. She could trip out in here. If she is close to it and they're rocking, I think she, has first jump on the closers.
I thought our 2 top picks were the 2 horses to beat. That's who I have in the top 2 spots. Then I'll use some fun prices because I think once you get beyond Pierette and Scarlett Begonia, then I can start making a case for some of the other bigger prices a little bit more. So I'll use them underneath in the spots with the 8 Stress Relief, who I thought ran really well at Churchill, and then the 9 Almighty One. I'll see if we can get that one into the mix at a fair price. So for Ashley, 3264. For me, 6389. We'd always love to hear from you. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Drop a comment in the comments section below. Let us know how you're playing the grade 3 Adirondack on Sunday. Best of luck.